Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statement with respect to Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program. It is a central sector scheme. The Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship administers the program. The program is being implemented by the Khadi and Village Industries Commission at the national level. Individuals above the age of 21 years, self-help groups, cooperative societies involved in the production and institutions that are registered under the Societies Registration Act of 1860 are eligible for benefits under this program. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the PIB makes a reference to Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement reads, it is a central sector scheme. Yes, this statement is right. There are two types of schemes. One is what is called as a central sector scheme. The other is what is called a centrally sponsored scheme. What is a central sector scheme? Let's say, for example, there is a scheme that is run by the government of India and the funding is provided entirely by the government of India. That is what is called a central sector scheme. But in centrally sponsored scheme, certain contribution is made by the central government and certain amount is also contributed by the state government. That is what is called a centrally sponsored scheme. So it is a central sector scheme is the first statement. So the first statement is right. When you look into the second statement, it says the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship administers the program. This statement is wrong. When you look into the second statement, it is wrong because it happens to be administered by the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. So the second statement is wrong, and yes, the third statement is right. The program is being implemented by the Khadi and the Village Industries Commission at the national level. It is the single nodal agency for the implementation of the program. So the third statement is right, but when it comes to the fourth statement, it is wrong. That is because individuals above the age of 18 years can get this from the government of India. It is not just 21 years, but anyone who is above 18 years of age who's attained majority would be able to get the benefits under this scheme. So this happens to be a central sector scheme being administered by the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises and is implemented at the national level by the Khadi and the Village Industries Commission, and only individual above 18 years of age, only new projects or units are considered for the sanction of the loans, and self-help groups have availed the benefits under this scheme as well. So these are some of the important points from the examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements are correct with respect to registration and regulation of foreign lawyers and foreign law firms in India 2022 rules? A foreign lawyer registered under the rules shall be entitled to practice law in India in litigation and non-litigation matters. They shall be allowed to practice on transactional or corporate work on joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, intellectual property matters, drafting of contracts and other related matters on a reciprocal basis. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference in the Indian Express article, which is why we have taken this practice question. Let us try and understand what are these rules. When you look into the first statement reads, a foreign lawyer registered under the rules shall be entitled to practice law in India in litigation and non-litigation matters. This statement is wrong. Why? That is because according to the new rules released by the Bar Council of India, they would be able to practice only in the non-litigation matters and not in the litigation matters, which means to say they would not be able to come before the court of law, they would not be able to argue a specific case. In this way, they would only be able to practice on the non-litigation matters and not on the litigation matters. So the litigation matters, which includes the civil property related matters, matrimonial related matters, these cases can still be only argued by the Indian lawyers. But when it comes to the non-litigation matters, let's say the arbitration issues or joint ventures, mergers and acquisition, intellectual property related matters, they would be able to give some inputs, some ideas. That is where they would be able to enter. They would not be able to practice in front of the court of law. So the first statement is wrong. When you look into the second statement, yes, they shall be allowed to practice on transactional or corporate work on joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, intellectual property matters, drafting of contracts. They are allowed to do it on a reciprocal basis. What is this reciprocal basis? Let's say for example, we have United States of America, or let's say for example, we have United Kingdom. Both these countries allow Indian lawyers to operate in their territories. Only when such countries allow Indian lawyers, those who have studied in India, only such countries will be allowed to participate in non-litigation matters in India. What if there is a country which does not allow Indian lawyers to participate in the non-litigation matters? Such countries will also not be allowed to participate in India. So reciprocal basis basically means there is reciprocity. You allow us, we will allow you, and that is only limited to the non-litigation matters. If we look into what kind of work they will be allowed to do, give advice and opinion concerning laws of the country, of primary qualification of the concerned lawyer, transactional corporate work, advise and appear as a lawyer for a person, firm, company having address or principal office or head office in a foreign country, in international arbitration case. So they would be allowed to give advice on the international arbitration case on the foreign laws of their own country, and advice firm with principal office in foreign country in proceedings before bodies other than the courts and the tribunals. These are some areas where they would be able to operate. And do note, we also have the Bar Council of India. This happens to be a statutory body created by the Parliament to regulate and represent the Indian Bar, and the Bar Council of India perform the regulatory function by prescribing standards of professional conduct and etiquette, and by exercising disciplinary jurisdiction over the bar. They also set standards for legal education and grants recognition to universities whose degree in law will serve as a qualification for enrollment as an advocate. This can also be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to Sea Dragon, which of the following statements are correct? It is an annual multinational high-end exercise hosted by the Australian Navy. The exercise primarily focuses on anti-submarine warfare among the participating countries. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the PIB makes a reference to exercise Sea Dragon. So remember, this exercise Sea Dragon is an initiative that is taken up by the United States of America's Navy. So the first statement, which says Australian Navy, is a wrong statement because this happens to be an annual exercise, and this is a US-led multinational exercise designed to practice and discuss anti-submarine warfare tactics. So the second statement is right, but the first statement is wrong, primarily because it is not Australian Navy, but instead it is United States of America's Navy. Since the first statement is wrong, the second statement is right, the answer to this would be B only. So this exercise aims to achieve higher level of synergy between the participating countries, between the friendly navies, and this is based on shared values and commitment of an open, inclusive Indo-Pacific region. So this is where all these countries come together, and they primarily focus on anti-submarine warfare. With this, they also galvanize all the forces together, and if any other country is planning to hit these countries through its naval power, these countries come together and dethrone another country's naval power. It is an indirect tactics to put pressure on the Chinese naval forces who operate in the Indian Ocean, who operate in the Indo-Pacific Ocean, to send a signal to China. All these countries conduct this exercise Sea Dragon. So this exercise Sea Dragon will test the capabilities of participating aircraft. It will stress on coordinated anti-submarine warfare among the participating countries, and the complexity and scope of these exercises have increased steadily over the past years to include advanced ASW drills. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, what is this exercise Le Perose? What is this? Please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following is the best description of Mission Sahbhagita? It is a scheme comprising of projects aimed at infrastructure development of India's international borders. The objective is to provide education and market-driven skills training to youth between the ages of 17 to 35 years. It is a scheme to protect the growers of eligible groups from making distress sale and to reduce post-harvest losses. It is a platform for sharing wetland management experiences, best practices, success stories, and associated challenges. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is it is a platform for sharing wetland management experiences, best practices, success stories, and associated challenges. So, this mission, Sahbhagita, is more to do with wetland management. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference in the PIB article. So, what is this mission Sahbhagita? Mission Sahbhagita is a platform where they discuss about wetland management. It was launched by the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change in the year 2022 with the mission of healthy and effectively managing network of about 75 wetlands of national and international importance. So what is the significance of this particular project? One is it supports water and food security, provides a buffer for floods, cyclones, droughts, and other similar extreme events. It also provides employment opportunities to the people in that particular locality. It helps in conserving of species of local, national, and international significance. It helps in mitigation of the climate change and also adapt to new set of programs to mitigate the climate change, and ultimately recognizes, conserves, and celebrates the cultural heritage as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which one of the following was a journal brought out by Abul Kalam Azad? Al Hilal, Comrade, the Indian sociologist, Zamindar. The answer to this is Al Hilal. Al Hilal was a newspaper that was established by Abul Kalam Azad and was used as a medium for criticism of the British Raj in India. The newspaper also espoused the very cause of Indian national movement and also supported Indian Muslims to join this movement as well. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2008. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is seismic microzonation. Let us try and understand what is this topic of seismic microzonation. What is this seismic microzonation? We have a huge country. We have from the north to the south, from east to the west, we have different types of regions. What we have is different geological, geomorphological features as well. There are few zones in India which have more areas which can have the seismic impact, that is earthquakes can impact this specific region in India. For example, when you consider the northern areas, northeastern areas, what we have is relatively higher impact that can be felt on the seismic level, that is the earthquake impact can be quite more in these regions. But when you consider the impact in the southern part of India, the impact may be comparatively less. So what is the seismic microzonation? Seismic microzonation is basically understanding the earthquake risk. So identifying those areas which have similar impact, making sure that we have a categorization so that we would be able to mitigate the impact of earthquake. Let's say for example, bringing few states within the northern region into one specific zone, or we have the northeastern zone. Within northeastern zone there are specific areas which will have a larger impact. Bringing them under one particular zone is what is called as seismic microzonation. So basically identifying the earthquake risk and studying the mitigation program with respect to specific zones on the basis of geology, seismology, geophysics, geotechnical, and structural engineering is what is called a seismic microzonation study. So this seismic microzonation study is important as it helps to generate inputs for constructing earthquake risk, resilient building infrastructure, dwellings to reduce and mitigate the impact of earthquake shaking, and for minimizing the damages to the structure and loss of life for safe urban planning. This happens to be the significant aspect when it comes to the seismic microzonation. So what are the parts of the seismic microzonation? How does it work? Estimation of the ground motion parameters using historical seismicity, recorded earthquake motion data, which includes the location of potential sources, magnitude, mechanism, epicentral distances. So in the past, this particular location may have been hit with earthquakes. So understanding the past incidents and taking them into consideration, site characteristics using geological, geomorphological, geophysical and geotechnical data, assessment of the local site effect, which includes site amplification, predominant frequency, liquefaction hazard, landslides and tsunami, and finally preparation of the seismic microzonation maps comes into the consideration. If we are able to do so, what we would be able to do is mitigate the impact of the earthquakes. So seismic microzonation is basically earthquake risk mitigation study. It helps in getting the realistic assessment of the earthquake hazard models. It will help in predicting the impact of the future earthquakes, and it will help in saving the heritage important structures from future major earthquakes. So this happens to be a risk mitigation strategy. So the National Center for Seismology, which happens to be an attached office of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, happens to be the nodal agency of Government of India for earthquake monitoring in the country, and also maintains National Seismological Network comprising of 152 observatories presently located throughout the country. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.